The history of Athens began when human groups settled in the region and used the Acropolis as a natural defensive bastion around the 3rd millennium BC. The city takes its name in honor of the goddess Athena, the daughter of Zeus, who was crowned its patron and protector after defeating Poseidon in a contest for supremacy, offering the people the first olive tree and its many benefits through its fruit. The strategic city experienced constant growth and became an important center of Mycenaean civilization. Athens, untouched, kept its Ionic soul through invasion. However, the city lost most of its splendor during the Dark Ages, once again becoming a small fortress. In the 8th century BC, Greece began to emerge from obscurity by modifying the Phoenician consonantal alphabet, inherited from the Ugaritic alphabet, to create the Greek alphabet. This educational resource was used to initiate literacy within the family, a necessary tool for participating in the new Greek society. Boys of a certain social rank, upon reaching the age of 7, received the paideia, or the foundation of education. This education provided boys with values that distinguished them from barbarians and made them capable of fulfilling their civic duties. This education focused on subjects that were given great educational and moral value, such as grammar, gymnastics, and music. Girls were not encouraged to study, but many learned to read and write. This was the moment chosen by Breezy and his group to set up their new headquarters in the Mycenaean palace, built several centuries earlier by the dwarf giants Patras and Kalamata. Thanks to Breezy's help, they had become respected architects, renowned for constructing many of the Cyclopean walls. The palace was located on a small hill very close to the Agora, the center of commercial, social, and political activity in the city. There, they would establish an educational center for both sexes, which would soon become known as the School of Athens. Breezy's mother, Chloris, the goddess of fragrances and flowers, would serve as director, the colorful gardens surrounding the Athenian headquarters, contrasting with the stony city, a welcome sight. The education provided in the various art forms included music, which, under the influence of the muses, would captivate the students, making it mandatory to learn to play a musical instrument. To stimulate artistic development, several workshops were created, offering elementary classes in painting, sculpture, and ceramics, as well as an innovative workshop for the creation of manuscripts, volumes, and books, which would become the home of future writers. In this workshop, the first codex-style books would be created, imitating the fantastic droppy books. However, the very first books in codex format had been manufactured in the Palace of Thrace, when Deiphobes, the Sibyl of Cumae, visited it and produced the first Sibylline books for her. They also produced the book written by Chloris, which would later be known as the Language of Flowers. The literary workshop also produced wax tablets in their respective style, of various shapes and sizes, which had also been designed by Breezy and were in the hands of all the students. A large public gymnasium was built on one side of the palace, where students exercised, creating a close relationship between athletics, education, and health. Massive structure with porticos, courtyard, and palestra, and pancration were practiced. Equestrian sports were also practiced, highlighting the teachings of the magical horses Xanthos and Balius. The Titan Prometheus was in charge of the busy gymnasium, while the Anemoi acted as teachers and coaches. Breezy, accompanied by her sensational pets, Kepri and Cyprus, acted like a regular student, establishing a close relationship with her classmates. In the Agora, the marvelous dropperfly, Theseus the Basilean, stood out for his respect and social skills, becoming the representative and spokesperson for the innovative little school of Athens. Achilles the Pelid ended up living in the bustling city of Sparta. With the implementation of this pedagogical method, the founding of the School of Athens, and the dictates of the Moirai, the infallible goddesses of destiny, Homer, Blindput, sung of var in cities, hexameters. Homer became Breezy's favorite, as did his pets. The protective cat Cyprus served as his guide, and the beetle Khepri taught him the Greek alphabet and the Ionic dialect through an innovative tactile system, thanks to the protuberances he used to create symbols or letters on the base of his gleaming armor. Hesiod then emerged, followed by a large number of lyric poets, each with a well-established canon. Hesiod, thanks to the information provided by Breezy, wrote his famous Theogony, one of the oldest surviving versions of the origin of the cosmos and the lineage of the gods of Greek mythology. It is noteworthy that Hesiod also had a great devotion to Hecate, giving her her place as a reappearance of Phoebe, the ancient Titaness, who personified the moon manifested in the darkness of the moon. The Theogony, in which Hesiod so praised Hecate's powers, ironically edited and bound in the literary workshop of the School of Athens, became a very popular work. This served to promote the forgotten Eleusinian mysteries, which had begun to be celebrated around 1500 BC during the Mycenaean period. The Eleusinian mysteries were annual initiation rites for the goddess Demeter and her daughter Persephone, under the strict direction of Hecate. They were held in the city of Eleusis, 30 kilometers from Athens. These rites, as well as the beliefs of the cult, were kept in utmost secrecy under penalty of death. Under the influence of the psychedelic psycheon, the rites united the worshipper with the goddesses, including promises of divine power and reward in the afterlife. The Theogony considerably increased the number of devotees to Hecate, as did the Orphic Mysteries, as the calculating goddess, admiring Orpheus's prowess in trying to rescue Eurydice from the underworld, as well as his poetry and music, which had incredibly put Cerberus's guard to sleep, became their mentor and protector. The Orphic Mysteries, which emerged during this period, were a doctrine of salvation concerning man, his soul, and his destiny after death. The Orphics, who were also intellectually sponsored by Hecate, were a sect outside of politics, people of sacred manuscripts and documents, and at the same time, practitioners of mystery rites. According to the doctrine, upon initiation into the mysteries, the adept acquired a guide to salvation, which provided them with a password to identify themselves in the afterlife. The Orphics, during their religious festivals, also took the addictive psycheon. Something important that Breezy was able to notice during his travels through the region was that during this archaic period, it had become common to place statues of Hecate at crossroads and at city gates, and later to place her at the doorsteps of homes, associated with warding off evil spirits. This led to the belief that offending the goddess attracted the spirits, initiating invocations in her name. To complete the praises of Hecate, Sappho, the famous poetess, called her the Queen of the Night, and her temple at Lagina, where the goddess was served by eunuchs, was one of the most visited in Hellas. It was during this long period that the population explosion occurred, triggering a migration phenomenon that affected many Greeks who established colonies in the south of the Italian peninsula, known as Magna Graecia, Asia Minor, and other parts of the Mediterranean. The Olympic Games began to be held every 4 years in the city of Olympia, and the Olympiad represented the unity of time between the games. Olympia was home to the most important sanctuary of Zeus, the king of the gods. The Olympic Games exerted a great influence on relations between city-states and their colonies. Athletes came to the sporting festivities from the most remote places, protected by the Olympic peace, a sacred truce. The official participation of Greek cities in the offerings and sacrifices of the games created a sense of brotherhood that constituted the soul of inter-Hellenic relations. At the same time, the spirit of competition, traditionally monopolized by the nobility, spread to the rest of society, which, without abandoning its religious roots, infused sport with more democratic characteristics. Breezy and his allies were present at all the Pan-Hellenic Games, as were the marvelous dropperflies from the different regions, who joined the 80, playing their lyres and other instruments, forming contagious and entertaining musical choruses to liven up the event and encourage each of the participants. They also recited and sang the exploits and misfortunes of the venerated Trojan War. At one of these Olympic Games, trouble arose between Breezy and his collaborators, the immortal giant Athos, son of Poseidon and the gorgon Stheno. Just as Breezy wore the Kepri scarab around his neck, the giant Athos always wore the gorgonion, his protective amulet, a gift from his powerful mother, around his waist. For many years, Athos had dominated the horse race, as his offspring from the Actae Peninsula in southern Thrace were the highest quality, a gift from his father, the god of the sea and patron of horses. However, in these Olympic competitions, the giant Athos had broken the sporting ethic by stealing and disappearing the horses of Big Pythias, one of the jockeys and a close friend of Breezy. The clever girl, in a swift maneuver, had replaced them with Xanthus and Balius, who had magically changed appearance and color. After several attempts, Big Pythias won the close race against the experienced riders of Athos's chariot. Big Pythias, unaware of Athos's and then Breezy's plot, approached his cheering followers, while several marvelous dropperflies hovered around him, flicking their dodecahedral sections on and off, when he was intercepted by the enraged giant, who intended to strike him. After swatting away the marvelous dropperfly, Tertius the Basileus, Athos's hand was stopped in midair by Prometheus's muscular arm, who reminded the angry giant of his respect for the Olympian peace. However, Acta's groom wanted revenge for his unexpected defeat, and since this was the Olympic competition, the rematch was arranged with a confrontation at the Pancratium between the giant Athos and the Titan Prometheus. This confrontation became the most memorable event of the Olympiad. Prometheus soundly defeated the giant Athos. He did not kill him due to the rules of the competition and the Olympic peace, as the giant Athos was only immortal on the Actae Peninsula. A battered and demon-possessed giant Athos retired from the Olympic Games and never appeared in athletic competitions again, but he swore revenge on Breezy and his allies for making him look ridiculous. Breezy, foreseeing future trouble with the dangerous giant, banned all the marvelous dropperflies from the vast Aegean and Mediterranean region from approaching the Actae Peninsula. The giant Athos began his misdeeds by ravaging the small Greek colonies settled on his peninsula, and from that moment on, he attacked any vessel that dared to land in his domain. Greek sailors avoided approaching the coasts of the feared Actae Peninsula, deviating only when they saw the silhouette of Aegean Oros or the sacred mountain in the distance.